This Sunday at Payback, Sheamus goes up against Antonio Cesaro for the United States Championship. Now, last month when Sheamus won the title from Dean Ambrose in a 20-man over-the-top battle royale that was, to inevitably screw Dean Ambrose short of his title reign because of Triple H and the Evolution storyline, I thought to myself, why Sheamus? I was like, is this Triple H? Is this Triple H's buddy? The guy he put over at Mania, the guy he faced at Mania, the guy he's a big believer in? Or is this something more? And the thing that I kept running back to was, Sheamus is a big-name guy in WWE, I still don't think he's getting the big pops like he used to, but he's a big-name guy. He's got to do something, so let's give him the United States title. The more I started to think about it, though, is this about Sheamus? Or is this about Antonio Cesaro? Guys, my name is Tubby, and this Sunday... Wow, that was quick. Wow, what the hell was that? Apparently the match is already over again. Are we going to see some sort of screwy finish like that this Sunday? We're going to find out. But here we go, the real match. Cesaro versus Sheamus. I actually thought something like that could happen where they'd go to a double countout. And the reason I showed that was because I think this feud has got a little bit of legs. I think it's possible. I think they could put on a great match. Sheamus, in the right setting, could put on one hell of a show. And the strength between both of these men, I'm interested to see how it goes. Now, with Paul Heyman in the corner of Antonio Cesaro, the king of swing, there's a lot of potential for this feud to go somewhere besides just one pay-per-view kind of thrown together. And I'll be honest with you, once I started looking at this match from the eyes of, is it more about, just throwing together a match? Or was the whole United States Championship for Sheamus more about putting over Antonio Cesaro? And the more I started to think about it, the more I started coming to the later, thinking, Antonio Cesaro has been getting a big push since Mania. He won the over-the-top Battle Royale, the 30-man. Sheamus won a 20-man. This is almost like a battle of the Battle Royale winners. One won the Andre the Giant, one won the United States title, and in kind of a way to put him over. And I'm all for it. When I started looking at it as why did they give Sheamus the title, and I think I had the same reaction a lot of people had, was why Sheamus? Out of everybody in that match, why didn't they give it to Ziggler? Why didn't they give it to somebody else who could use it? Why didn't they give it to somebody like Mark Henry? Why didn't they give it to somebody? And then I thought, if this is all about Antonio Cesaro, which I hope it is because he's been on a roll, I hope he keeps going on a roll, I think it makes perfect sense for him to come out and win. Now, a lot of people were upset that, he wasn't the Intercontinental Champion and all that good stuff, and they wanted to see him go for another title. I still think, a mid-card title isn't necessarily the push I'd want from Antonio Cesaro. I think him putting on a couple great matches, and maybe, I'm still hoping for him to win Money in the Bank, but if this feud carries on and it goes to Money in the Bank, Antonio Cesaro versus Sheamus, I think it's got some potential. Now, what I don't really want to see, though, and here's the problem. If Sheamus were to win, I think that would signal Antonio Cesaro being in the Money in the Bank briefcase match, is where I think that's where things would be headed to, because if Antonio wins with the title, that means Sheamus gets a rematch. Now, if Sheamus gets a rematch, that means most likely at Money in the Bank, Antonio Cesaro or Sheamus will not be in the Money in the Bank ladder match. And that creates a little bit of a conundrum if you're a fan of Antonio Cesaro. Because I would love to see Antonio Cesaro in the Money in the Bank, and I would actually probably like to see Antonio Cesaro win. Now, does he really need it with the whole King of Swing, people getting behind him, people liking him? I don't necessarily know if he needs it, but I would still like to see it. Now, to see it, he's got to lose this match. So a lot of the predictions are more about not necessarily the titles that Antonio Cesaro could potentially win, but the ramifications of, the next pay-per-views. And that's what a lot of people fail to realize in the predictions. They're like, all right, here we go. We got Antonio versus Sheamus, and we want Cesaro to win because who gives a shit about Sheamus? And I agree with that, I've kind of gotten dragged out about Sheamus. I liked him better when he was a heel. The whole fella. I don't like the fact that he keeps getting put in squash matches with Titus O'Neil. I'm not a fan of those where he hits a brogue kick out of nowhere. But I think he's got to win this match. And I am saying he's got to win the match for the simple fact that I want Antonio Cesaro to be in the Money in the Bank briefcase. Now, there's been a precedent where, you don't necessarily have to, you can go in with a championship and still be in the Money in the Bank briefcase. It happens on the SmackDown one, and I think it happened with Dean Ambrose, right? So it's still possible. It's more than possible that Antonio Cesaro could win the title. And the other thing that was brought up to me and, I was thinking about was if Cesaro wins and then goes on to have the Money in the Bank briefcase, a la Miz, United States Championship, I would be okay with that. I think that would be a good route to go for Antonio Cesaro because, one, it lets him kind of build him up. And, there's only going to be one Money in the Bank briefcase this year. There's going to be one because, the titles are combined. And I still want to see, I would love to see, Antonio win the title, maybe go to Money in the Bank briefcase. Could you imagine if then he faced Wade Barrett and combined the Intercontinental and the United States title? And he had both. He had the mid-card titles, and he had the future briefcase? Oh, my God. I would be in love if Antonio Cesaro had that happen. At the same time, Sheamus has never, regained his former glory. From his heel days, 2009, 2010, I don't think that Sheamus is... I don't think he's ever going to get back to that level. I don't know what it's going to take for Sheamus. He's kind of like, for me, I still like to watch him wrestle. I think he puts on great matches. But at the same time, he to me, he's kind of like Alberto Del Rio, where his character really needs a refresh some way, shape, or form. And, I hope they give it to him. And, maybe they write him off. Maybe Cesaro beats him so bad they write Sheamus off TV even though he just kind of came back. I still think Sheamus' character needs something else. And, if that route is giving the title to Antonio Cesaro, and then by giving that title to Antonio Cesaro, it allows him to then go on and do something else, I would be all for it. But I still want to see Cesaro in that Money in the Bank match. And I think, with the network and the limited matches they have, I think a United States Championship and an Intercontinental Championship match at Money in the Bank would make sense. Although I would be up for the argument, and this is something that I'm sure somebody's going to say, Tubby, wouldn't you want to see the mid-card champions in the, the chance for the upper card title? And I would absolutely, I would love to. I would love to see Wade Barrett and, Cesaro be champions and then make it into the Money in the Bank briefcase match because, a lot of the dynamic a lot of people forget about is now there is only going to be one Money in the Bank briefcase. Now, there's been some talks, there's been some speculation about having a mid-card title Money in the Bank ladder match. I would not be opposed to that. I think it would be a good opportunity for an extra cash-in besides just, Daniel's title or whoever's champion after on Monday Night Raw if he decides to strip the title and whatnot. But I think the only really way to do that is to feature guys that really don't get a showcase. I would love it if they had an NXT ladder match. I think that would be sick on a pay-per-view, but obviously they don't really have enough superstars being called up from NXT right now to fill out a match like that. So I'm going to say, going into this match, if Antonio Cesaro were to win, this match is more about putting Antonio over, and he doesn't necessarily have to... he could put on one hell of a match and then just lose screwily. Last month he beat Jack Swagger and Rob Van Dam. And, the neutralizer through the garbage can really fucked up Rob Van Dam, fucked up his eye. And I think, that push has got to keep going. But he doesn't necessarily have to beat Sheamus, although I do think he'll beat Sheamus. And I think he'll still be in the Money in the Bank briefcase ladder match. Because I think it would be a huge shame if Cesaro, the king of swing... is not in that match. And that's my only fear is that if he were to win, he goes out, he beats Sheamus. Sheamus gets a rematch in the next pay-per-view. They would have to write off the rematch on like a Monday Night Raw. And I would be fine with that. If they were to do a scenario where Antonio wins and then Sheamus gets his rematch on Monday Night Raw, I'm all for it. I think that's the best possible scenario. And I would really, really look forward to something along those lines as he's going to hit a big European uppercut. And now Sheamus is coming back. Typical Sheamus. Fella! You can just hear him. You can hear him hyping up. He's all excited. Yeah! There we go. Now, one thing that I did think about was maybe there's some interference, on the part of somebody screwing over Sheamus. And that way Sheamus could have a match for the Money in the Bank. Because I think Sheamus needs some sort of feud that, revolves around more than just a title. And, he's been back. He's one of the big guys in the company. So it makes sense that they'd put him in a feud. But like I said, giving him that United States Championship, I still think is more about putting over Antonio Cesaro than it is about Sheamus being the guy that has the title. So that's my honest opinion, guys. I want to know what you guys think in the comment section below. Make sure to let me know. Is Antonio Cesaro going to walk out with the United States title? Or is Sheamus going to hit a brogue kick out of nowhere after Antonio impresses the hell out of the crowd and then go on to Money in the Bank and win that title shot? I think him losing to Sheamus and then surprising everybody in the Money in the Bank ladder match might be the best way to go. So let me know what your thoughts, your predictions, your comments are in the section below. Make sure to follow me on Twitter, twitter.com/TubbyEmu this Sunday. Most likely be live tweeting the pay-per-view. And until next time, thank you so much for watching. Sheamus might retain, but Cesaro, I think, is going to come out on top. So until next time, guys, thank you very much for watching. Make sure to hit that like button if you guys enjoyed it. And until next time, we will see you all later, fella.